Exactly. You want to at least be always questioning, like always maintaining that possibility. I could be wrong about everything.
When you start, when you go over stuff, like when you talk about like libertarian ideas and you look at like the way the government is run now, do you run through that thought process? Like maybe the only way to do it is the way that we're doing it right now.
Yeah, I try my best to always do that. I mean, I'm guilty of not doing it, but I try my best to always be like, okay, well, maybe theoretically, they know something I don't know, which kind of means like this is the best way to do it, or maybe I'm just wrong and my theoretical model couldn't work and this is the best, but that try to give like the toughest arguments against it and then go like, okay, but we still didn't need to kill 1 million Iraqis. You know what I mean? Like we still didn't need to do this, or we still at least didn't need a, but I try my best. It's dangerous because the further into it I get, the more convinced I am that I'm right, and then that's also dangerous. Because I'm not as insecure about it as I used to be.
It feels like the only way, like the system is broken. Everyone sort of agrees that. And the only way to do it right would be to create a more ethical, moral, logical system that's actually based on constitutional rights and how the government is supposed to be in terms of like the kind of power they're supposed to have versus what they're always constantly trying to acquire. But if you did that, how much would you have to blow the system up, and how would we run things? Like what period of vulnerability would we have while we're trying to reestablish a new system, and how would we know if this system could even work correctly without being influenced by money and power and all the shit that's fucked it up for what we've got right now?
It's a daunting challenge. I think that like what Ron Paul used to always say was basically, I mean, these are my words, not his, but it was basically his plan was he goes, end all the worst shit first. Like, end all the most evil shit first. So the first thing is like, stop bombing third world countries, stop locking people in jail for victimless crimes, stop bailing out billionaires and corporations and stuff. Like, stop that first. You know, you don't start with like, well, okay, if there's a vulnerable population that's like dependent on this government program, get rid of it tomorrow. You know, so like you try to do that. And then the more of the corruption that you roll back, you're going to see, like less wealth being extracted from regular American people and going to special interests, kind of build that up over time. But it's a challenging thing to go from this insane system to something less insane. Is tough. And throughout human history, usually there's a pretty rough period in between there. It's usually not a smooth transition.
Well, it's kind of fascinating. We think that this is the only country that has been really established as like a colony that went on to take over the world, and it did it inside of 300 years, which is pretty fucking wild.
Yeah, that's the most wild part is the time span.
It's pretty crazy. Because
going from being a republic to an empire has happened before, but we're the most powerful empire in world history, at least in terms of like raw power, like the technology, the level of wealth, all that shit, and we did it in a very short time.
And some of the most unexceptional people are the ones who want to run it, which is so weird. When you see like the Squad, did you see that debate that she was having with those bankers where they were talking about eliminating fossil fuels?
She made me root for the bankers, Joe.
I was rooting for the bankers.
It is quite a feat to get me to say, I think the head of Goldman Sachs is making a good point.
Imagine that she was dangling the carrot of the $10,000 we gave back in student loan debt forgiveness, that those people are going to have bank accounts. And those people that got that free money are going to take that free money out of your bank account. Like, that was the immediate thing that she dangled, which lets you know some of the incentive involved in giving student loan debt. It's not really that we want to help these people. It's that now we will have influence over those people for voting.
Oh, this was clearly like just throwing a carrot like pre-midterm
It's only, how come only 10,000? How about all of it? If you're going to really absolve student loan debt, if someone's $700,000 in the hole or whatever, what's like worst case scenario? If someone goes to med school,
if they
PhD,
do all of that, probably 300-400 at least.
And then it compounds with interest over the decades. Like, I was reading the story about this woman who took out $150,000 in student loans and she hasn't been able to pay them back, and now she's $250,000 in the hole.
Yeah. Jeez. And they're the most vicious type of loans, too.
Of course.
Like, it's easier to get out of credit card debt. You know, you can't even get out through bankruptcy. Yeah.
People are having their Social Security docked. People who've made it to the end of life. They're relying on government assistance, right? It's essentially government assistance that we pay for. and they're getting that docked to pay for student loan debt.
Yeah, it's such a fucked up system. Like, I'm completely against student loan debt, just forgiving the debt, just because I think it's like it's just, you're just punishing the taxpayers for the debt of in many cases a more privileged group. It's like the people who didn't go to college now have to bail out the people who did, but man, it is such a fucked up system that they trap these 18-year-old kids into signing up for, and that no one at the colleges even. Like, the fact, I mean, obviously the politicians are like soulless and the bankers are just trying to make money, but that no one in the university ever has the basic human decency to look at one of these kids who goes, hey, you're spending $150,000 on a gender studies major? Just think about that. Think about whether or not this is really a good idea. They just go, oh, okay, we'll take the money.
Well, all
no
they're
problem.
hoping is they're going